a tree survey. So I'm trying to reconcile that instead of saying it go away, which is one of your recommendations. I don't like that recommendation. I want training of landscapers from real arborists on how to consider a tree survey. For example, you know, they understand root systems and know where construction traffic should go. And, you know, and I think landscapers wouldn't mind taking a little hour course to be able to do that tree survey. So I'm trying to reconcile the roadblock that people have that hiring a tree survey guy is expensive. And I thought we could educate our local landscapers, you know.
All right, I see your point there. And maybe part of it is education, but you know, part of it is having that requirement as well. Maybe is that something the staff can maybe come up with a hybrid solution to use it?
Well, don't forget, Kevin and John, that a tree survey is not required for a developed residential lot.
Right.
It's only for new development and commercial.
Right.
So I think that we already have cut that baby in the middle. For a developed residential lot, which is almost everybody, right? All you need is a landscape plan. And that doesn't have to be, you know, by one of these higher credentialed professionals. So where you do need the credentialed professional is the new development, and that's where you should have it. So I think it's fine the way it is.
Okay.
I think what I'm trying to say is I don't want it to go away. And I think if you give them a path to learn from these arborists.
I don't think you need to, Kevin, because a situation like your house where you're having more work done, you don't need.
I like to finish my point though. I said what I was trying to do though is say if you're not willing to get trained by an arborist, you have to get a tree survey. You know, so I'm trying to find something in the middle, Darren. Does that make sense? Like if you're not willing to get trained by an arborist to understand this issue, and you don't have a certificate from us, no, we're not going to accept you as doing the tree survey. But if you do, we will, and that would mean some people would refuse to be educated, and they would need a tree survey. So I'm trying to deal with the fact that a lot of construction people are upset that they can't use their landscaper that probably is qualified to do this, but we need to make sure they're qualified and need them educated. So I was just trying to bridge a gap, and I hope I clarified it.
Okay,
Kevin,
I think we see that.
If I could just,
Alex?
while we're kind of on this topic, I could just pose one option too to consider, and this is something that Darren, Kathy, and I talked at length about last week. And Kevin, to your point, I think we all understand what you're saying. I think from a staff perspective, it would be very difficult to validate whether or not someone has and who is qualified to. I mean, you mentioned an arborist. But, you know, we can talk about that further. But one of the things in crafting the language in this draft for the tree survey and make it a requirement was really to validate what's existing on the site. So if you're one potential option to consider is a tree survey would be required if you're proposing to receive credit for existing vegetation on the site. That's how we can validate the location and the size, diameter, breast height. However, you know, if our end goal is to, you know, for you to preserve, you know, the existing vegetation, would it then be easier for someone to just say, no, I'm just going to plant something around, and so they forego the cost and the time to have a tree survey prepared for that?
Well, I want a tree survey, but I thought we could educate our local landscapers how to do a tree survey. That's what
Maybe that's something that Kevin and, I'm sorry, that Darren and Alex can think through. Alex has given some thoughts right here on it.
I would just make the comment that
Judy?
I think that's a daunting task.
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody with a pickup and a trailer and a lawnmower is a landscape and a magnetic sign on the side of the truck. I mean, we have the gamut of landscapers in our community, and you have some very fine landscape firms that could be terrific arborists in their own right. I just think we got to remember the lowest common denominator that we might be serving here, and maybe education is a way that we can bring them up, but it's got to be something that they can consume on YouTube, not necessarily take a class in how would these guys know compliance. I mean, I think it's definitely good to be aspirational, Kevin. I just think it practically falls apart though in terms of trying to administer it.
That's fair. I just was trying to, I'm trying to resolve the public issues and make sure that, as Lydia said, that we don't have any fights on our hands. And I want to add also, we're creating value to that house in these requirements. And I hope that point is made more. I think the value of a home is much better when it's properly treated, and the resale value better. I'm sure the first occupants of those new homes on Medland Road, they loved their home. But then when they want to sell it, it probably would have sold for more if it was well landscaped, in my opinion. And I'm not an expert in that, but I think that's a probably accurate statement. So I just wanted to throw that in, and I think I've made my points. I was just trying to reconcile something and creatively, and and I think.
All right, I think we've got that. The village manager has a comment here. He's been doing some research, I think. Go ahead.
Just a couple of comments. I'd like to comment on both B and D. I guess I'll start with B and come back to D. It occurred to me while listening to the conversation here that we're hearing a lot of concern, particularly about that 1 to 15 foot requirement on the front yard, and in particular on particularly small lots. And I think Kevin suggested one way around it would be to go to 1 foot per 25 feet, and that's certainly a workable alternative. It might also be helpful to recognize that the depth of the front yards are different on the different size lots. I mean, you got a lot more depth to work with on an R30 lot than you do on an R8 lot, for example. And it's a lot easier to achieve a 1 per 15 foot linear spacing, or given the width of that lot on an R30 lot than it is on a R5 or R8 lot. So maybe the right approach is to have a different standard for different size lots. I mean, that's a little bit more complicated, but it could fit in a table of dimensional requirements pretty easily. For example, I'm pretty confident that we've heard the concern about circular driveways and whatnot. With an R30 lot, I don't think there would ever be a situation where you couldn't achieve it, 1 per 15 feet, even with a circular lot, a circular driveway. It's all about how you space them and where you put the trees. I mean, you're not going to occupy all of that frontage with 2 driveways. It's just not going to happen. I mean, unless it's at a lot at the end of the cul-de-sac where you're not going to get 2 driveways anyway. So there's that. With regard to the tree survey, I think that what's important with regard to tree survey is accurately identifying the species, accurately identifying the size characteristics, and then what many of us may not be thinking about is also accurately locating that tree on a lot diagram. And that's where the word survey comes from.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you can't just have necessarily a landscape designer, a person that's just picked it up as a trade, necessarily qualified to do this. And if you really think about it, it creates value for the property owner, I think, because if you can get those trees accurately depicted on the lot diagram and then overlay the development plan, you can bring that into our staff and have the conversation about what trees can be retained for credit, right? And it's all, I mean, it's all accurately depicted, so you know that you have a validated plan before you start removing stuff. So there's that.
That seems, quite practical.
Right.
Well, that is, obviously, Darren, that's something Alex and you can work on. I mean, that's that sort of theory. I like that very much, Jeff. Yeah, but in both cases, incidentally, yeah, of your two items.
Can I ask how you become a tree, how can a landscaper can become a tree survey person? What does it take for them to do that?
Well, I think you got a certification as a surveyor. I think that's the.
You got to be a licensed professional
That's where I
surveyor.
was going to jump in, because the survey community is becoming a bit nervous, as they reported to me recently, that there's a lot of measurements being taken and used that are not being done by a surveyor, when, according to the Board of Engineers and professional engineers and landscape surveyors, you're supposed to be using qualified professionals to perform that function. So it's the measurement component that triggers the survey, and why it's called a survey.
I was just trying to ask how, I mean, wouldn't it be in the best interest of a landscape person to be trained in tree survey?
I mean,
It's the survey of the whole
Why?
property. It's not just,
Right, I understand. And I got one done, and, so, I mean, I understand what it is. But I'm just trying to figure out what steps they have to take. Is that like, is that a course or?
It's more than just a course. It's quite a time period to become an established surveyor. But on the converse side, if someone's preparing a landscape plan, they don't have to meet the same requirements as a survey would trigger. And so that's why we were kind of focusing on, do we go down the landscape plan path? Do we go down the survey path? Because it's the survey path that's driving the need for that licensed surveyor.
Again, the suggestion that Jeff Sanborn had just made, aren't those practical approaches to both of these? Certainly they are to me. Kathy, were you were you disagreeing or making a different point on those?
No, I think what I was really wanting to do was just to respond to that survey piece. Why does it have to be, a survey? Why is it a survey? What does the measurement of the location require? And just recognizing that we're getting some pushback, and there are letters going out to communities right now where the survey, where the board is concerned that people are allowing other professionals to do functions that should be performed by a licensed surveyor. So we're actually in a little squirrely position on that, even in our current language. But it also is plainly recognized that if we did a landscape plan, it wouldn't be required. I think Jeff's point about knowing the locations and focusing on the measurement piece of it is the tree survey component, and he's supportive of doing the tree survey component. I think we just have to be careful in terms of who can do something called a survey. Preparing the plan for where things would be planted can be done by any landscape professional. So getting back to your point, Kevin, if somebody's preparing the landscape plan saying all the trees have been removed, I'm going to put these trees back here, here, and here, a landscape plan can do that, and a landscaper can prepare that plan. Mm-hmm. It would not require a licensed surveyor.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly why I'm bringing up this point, because the choice could be made to clear cut, because you wouldn't need to do a tree survey.
Right.
And that's
right.
what
There would be no point in it. Mm-hmm.
Prevent that.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think we've got some ideas on the table to follow up with here, not just from what Jeff has said, but other comments along the way. And I think we've been on this topic for a little while now. Unless you disagree, I'd like to move on. But is there Darren, I think what we need to do also is come back to you on the last slide, which had to do with some critical points you want to talk about, as well as these groups of 5 here, correct? So what we can do is you'll forward that over to us, and we can come back to you with our comments.
Do you not want to hear what, these 5 are the 5 critical areas you need to hear from, right?
They are the 5 critical comments, and we can I was looking to get a consensus of the council before we were moving forward on the entities, because we can't just if we keep rewriting to meet individual needs, it's very difficult on staff. So if we could get some general consensus, especially on A, B, and C, I think we, I think D and E, I think we can work through that a little bit on the fly, just a little bit more. But A, B, and C are ones where we really need some consensus because that's going to take a lot of, it's going to take some potential adjustments to the ordinance that are going to be significant from what's there right now. So if we could get some direction on that, that would be helpful. We don't have to do that tonight. We can always do that at the work session. If we do the work session in April, that's fine. It's something that I need you thinking about as a group, though.
I think you should send us your memo, and we have to give you our votes on those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you've laid out 1, 2, 3s and whatever. So just so that we come to that meeting and you have input from people.
Yeah,
That's great.
In that area, to so that we don't just keep wandering around the same.
Yeah.
That's great.
And Darren, I'll pledge you some time, or Alex, on this subject, following up on these points over the next couple of weeks, for sure, if you have that time.
But I love the FAQ idea. I think that would be really helpful.
Say that again, Judy. Judy?
The FAQ idea is a really good one for this, because
Right.
Kevin's point about educating people, anytime you can have a crib sheet of key points and answers to things and respond to people, that's very helpful.
How can you do it when you don't have an outcome? So we're leaving them out hanging. So you probably can't do it now until we get through that.
Well, what we can do, Kevin, is a lot of the concerns that you're hearing, we can put that into a FAQ to get at some of the more generalized concerns and some generalizations about the ordinance that can be firmed up. I can see Kathy's in the planning conference room already working on it, so we'll start working on that as well to get some more educational material. We'll send all that stuff out.
That's good. We're making progress whether we realize it or not, but thank you very much, Darren and Alex. I think we could move on to the next agenda item, and that would be number 5, and what that has to do now is the audit contract report. So, Jeff, do you want to introduce that? And I'm sure Brooke is awaiting.
Certainly will, and Brooks can get this set up. But as I mentioned before, this is a recurring contract. Every year we come back to the council at this time of year and ask you to approve an audit contract. This is, you have granted me contracting authority below a certain level, and this one falls below that level, but the general statutes require that the audit contract be approved specifically by the council, and so that's why this is coming to you.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Brooke, I know you're there. I see you now, too. And I know there were a couple questions earlier in the week about the contract, and maybe for the general public you want to address those, and we'll take any other questions that the council may have. And what would you like us to know?
Perfect. I'll give you a quick summary and feel free to ask any questions you have. So as you know, we are required to have an external audit each year by an independent CPA firm. So we are recommending using our current auditors, Dixon Hughes Goodman, for this upcoming year. There are no significant changes to the terms of the contract. The proposed base fee for this year's audit is $30,180. That is a 3% increase from prior year. As you can see in the memo, which I can share with you, bear with me one moment, and I'll share my screen. Perfect. As you can see in the memo, just the history of increases over the past few years, we average about 1.5% increase, which is in line with CPI. So last year, the contract did not have an increase. As of the time that I was writing this memo, I was not anticipating a single audit. I still don't anticipate a single audit on the state side of things because we received some funding below $500,000 for Powell Bill program this year. We spoke about that at mid-year, the fact that the state reduced their overall Department of Transportation budget which reduced our allocation. So I'm not anticipating that we'll receive any additional state funds, but we may by the end of the year. And if so, if we exceed the $500,000 threshold, a state single audit will be required. Also, I do want to at least mention, in light of some of the information we have seen related to the American Rescue Plan funding that may be coming, that may trigger a federal single audit, but we're just not sure about the details of that yet. So I wanted to at least mention it. Staff, we do complete our financial statements and prepare those financials in-house, as well as prepare all of the required audit schedules. And so we are able to maintain a reasonable audit fee instead of contracting with an auditor, an audit firm, CPA firm to prepare those financials. So at this time, I am recommending that you all approve the audit contract, but I'll be happy to answer any specific questions you have.
Brooke, would you explain just a little more detail what a single audit means and why we're on the threshold of that? It's in your paragraph here, but tell us a little more about what the single audit means, and would that come into effect if we receive certain federal proceeds from the Recovery Act, which I think we are going to get some, but maybe that doesn't apply to this. But perhaps you could answer that question for me on the single audit.
Sure. The single audit is related to state and federal funds that are received, and it's based on the funds that are expended in the year. So if you expend $500,000 in state funds within a year, then you're required to obtain a single audit, which basically the auditors come in and they have a standard audit checklist and procedures that they have to follow to make sure that we have spent the funds according to the restrictions of that program. Then on the federal side, I believe the limit is $750,000. So if you expend $750,000 within the fiscal year, then you have to obtain a federal single audit. And so it will depend on the federal side, it'll depend on whether or not we are eligible to claim some of those lost revenues as a result of COVID. And if those lost revenues exceed the $750,000, it may or may not reach that threshold. We just don't have guidance yet on what will be eligible for the American Rescue Plan funds. So that's to be determined. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, it does. I have a follow-up comment in a few minutes about the ARP, but we'll get through the contract first. Council members, any other questions of Brooke on the audit contract? I'm not seeing any. We have a motion, number 5. Is there a motion to approve this contract?
John, I move to authorize that the mayor or his designee enter into an audit contract with Dixon Hughes Goodman in the amount of $34,980.
The motion's by Lydia Bosch. Is there a second, please? Second by Kevin Drum. All in favor of approving this contract, say aye. Aye. I see that is unanimous. So that passes. Brooke, thank you for your work on that. My question is this, and Jeff, I know you mentioned to me a couple days ago, we had some idea that we may be receiving funds through the ARP, and as Brooke has just confirmed, I think you did a few days ago, we don't exactly know that yet, but it looks like it's going to happen. Is that right?
Yeah, I think what we're expecting now is that the Village of Pinehurst is going to get a little over $4.8 million of these funds that we may or may not be able to expend in line with.
Right. Part of the issue is it has to be spent on certain things and in a certain time, I think, right?
And half of those funds will come this fiscal year. I think May. Is that right? May, Brooke?
June. It should. The first distribution should be received.
So the likelihood we're actually going to be able to use those in this fiscal year is pretty slim, or we won't be able to use a lot of it. And then the remainder will be coming later next year. Is that right, Brooke?
Correct.
Yeah.
12 months from the first distribution is when we're supposed to receive the second distribution.
That's why.
So,
Correct.
Again, a tight schedule to spend it by the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, and that's really not problematic. It's once we receive it, it'll be I guess it'll be restricted general fund, if I'm using the right term, and it just rolls over to the next year, so.
Okay. Brooke, I don't know if you did this, but I sat in a North Carolina League of Municipalities webinar today from 10 o'clock till 11 o'clock, just on this subject. And, they'll be sending out their notes on that in the next 24 hours if they haven't already. I'll circulate that around to the council and the staff, but you no doubt get those too, I think, do you not? Their publications and recommendations? It was quite interesting to hear. Yeah.
We do, and our assistant director, we were in budget meetings this morning, but our assistant director of finance, she participated in the same webinar and is planning to send that same PowerPoint once they distribute that information.
Great. It was quite educational. I think we'd all enjoy reading that. I'll make sure we get it around. Okay. That brings us to, comments from attendees. I'll ask the village clerk, do we have any comments from attendees that have been received that I don't have already on the email tonight? All right. Do we have comments? Do we have a sign-up sheet for this meeting tonight? Okay. Are there any comments from attendees? Mr. Hoffman, would you wish to speak from here? You can take either one of these two. Mr. Hoffman, you can sit at the desk and we'll get the microphone on for you there, or you can stand, whatever you prefer. And Lori, or here, I'll get it. I'll get the microphone.
John, we missed other business. If we could, after public comment business, I'd appreciate it.
Say again, Kevin.
We missed other business. If we could go back to that after public comment briefly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're exactly right, Kevin. I'll proceed with this, but we'll come back to that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Mr. Hoffman. And I believe, Mr. Hoffman, you were here when I made comments at the outset of this meeting on the timing of public comments to be received and the subject matter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Please proceed.
On Magnolia Road, opposite the Magnolia Inn, there is a sign which states as follows, and I quote, "Old Town Paths restored in 2006. The pathway extending down this block of Magnolia Road reflects America's preeminent landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted's original vision for a village in the trees. His plan consisted of a network of paths using the local natural materials of sand and clay to blend in with the environment." And I quote, end of quote. Imagine that, an early environmentalist laying out the pathways for early Old Town Pinehurst. My wife and I moved to Pinehurst in September 1991, drawn here by the ambiance of Old Town. At that time, a sand clay pathway ran along Everett Road in front of my home, which was maintained periodically by the village. I'm sure that Mayor Strickland and Council Member Kevin Drum, longtime residents of Old Town Pinehurst, remember these sand clay pathways better than I do. In fact, early editions of the PDO described in detail the layout of the village's right-of-way or streetscape in Old Town, alternating magnolia or holly trees located in a swale with bushes interspersed between them, protecting the sand clay pathway from the street. The neighborhood surrounding Pinehurst Elementary School, bounded by Short, Page, Fields, and Dundee roads, still retain vestiges of these sand clay network to this day. It's been mentioned that the National Park Service would be conducting an audit to determine our historic district status. Contrary to some, I consider the historic district status to be essential to the well-being of Old Town Pinehurst. Otherwise, it is just anywhere USA. What better way to help maintain this historic district status than by refurbishing these historic sand clay pathways in this neighborhood surrounding Pinehurst Elementary? There is a prior history of our neighborhood working in tandem with the village to solve a right-of-way problem. Approximately 15 years ago, there arose an acute traffic problem on Kelly Road when dropping off or picking up children at Pinehurst Elementary. A group was formed called the Neighbors, who approached Andy Wilkinson, the village manager, with a plan to replant the bushes between the existing trees on the school site of Kelly between Everett and Dundee Roads. This was accomplished, and the village restored the sand clay path from Page Road to Dundee Road, providing a safe, secure walkway for these children and or their parents. The Neighbors have maintained these bushes ever since. In closing, I ask Mayor Strickland, the members of the Village Council, and the audience, either actual or virtual, to drive down Dundee Road to Everett Road and thence to Kelly Road and see for yourselves the damage that has been done to this streetscape by construction and or power crews during the development of the new enlarged Pinehurst Elementary School. This neighborhood may be obliged to put up with 2 years or so of construction traffic and noise and untold years of traffic congestion on our quiet residential streets. But we should not be obliged to live with this streetscape nightmare, especially being an integral part of Old Town and the Pinehurst Historic District. Please use this opportunity to develop a streetscape renewal program for this neighborhood as a partial argument for a continued Pinehurst Historic District. Thank you.
Mr. Hoffman, thank you very much. I'll note that that was quite in excess of our 3 minutes, and I would please urge you, when you speak to the council, as you do from time to time, to keep your comments shorter in the future, please. And if you'd like to present a copy of that to the fine, and we'll get that to the beautification committee and other sources there. Thank you very much. Laura McNeil. And Laura, would you confirm your name and the street? I can't quite read here.
Sure, it's 20 Sawmill Road West.
What is the street again?
20 Sawmill Road West.
Sawmill Road. What is the topic that you wish to speak on?
I wanted to talk about Freedom Matters and our mask issues.
That's a subject that we've heard quite a bit about over the last few weeks, and it's not a subject that the Village Council can have any authority over. So based upon the comments I made earlier tonight, I'm not sure if you were here for those, we would really not appreciate those comments being made tonight because they're beyond the scope of the authority of the Village Council. If you wish to submit those to the village clerk in written form, that'll be fine, but based on the policies that we're developing and have continued for several years, I would not want that.
But the policies haven't been adopted.
I can't hear you, ma'am. Would you use the microphone?
The policies have not been adopted. Is that correct?
No, the policies I read from are what we have practiced for many years. And we're going to talk later tonight about enhancing those policies, updating those policies. But I believe the topic is such that it's not something we can control. And I ask your indulgence, please. You may give your report, however, to the village clerk if you would like.
And will that be part of the public record if I do so?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, I will do that. Thank you.
The next speaker I have on the list is Mr. Justin Bradford. Mr. Bradford, I believe you were partially here when I made my comments earlier tonight. You also, I believe, wish to speak on issues, as I've identified, that are not the authority of the Pinehurst Village Council, and you've supplied me with this report, as you did the last time, which we appreciate. So again, as I did with the earlier speaker, I don't think the Village Council will deal with this issue tonight because it's not something we have authority over, but you're welcome to have whatever other comments you have, and I'll give this to the village clerk as well, representing your view, but that involves topics about which we are not in authority to make or change, and we will follow the governor's orders accordingly. I appreciate your indulgence very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have some unrelated remarks potentially, if you'd like to hear those. I think I'm well within my rights to.
I don't believe so, Mr. Bradford, but I'd be happy to review those with you, and if they are germane at the next meeting to the authorities of the Pinehurst Village Council, I'd be happy to have you speak at that time. But perhaps as we've done with your submission of this material to us in the last couple of days, we will take those comments and review them in staff, with myself rather. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
I have one other, excuse me?
I may not make these remarks tonight. Is that what I understand?
Mr. Bradford, my fear is that the comments will get into issues, as identified earlier, that are not the authority of the Pinehurst Village Council. And
I'm prepared to speak
if I
about
do
a couple
that,
issues that are under the jurisdiction of the Pinehurst Police Department and the Village Council, of which I have not addressed this council before.
I will make the following suggestion. If you will meet with me or talk with me over the next 24 hours and review the content of that, be happy to do that. And if it's germane, please come, we'll invite you back to the next meeting.
I would be happy to have an audience with you.
Thank you very much. I'll speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker, I'm sorry, is this Ashley Corino? And ma'am, would you approach the microphone, please? And give your full name.
That's Ashley Corsino.
And your address is 330 Wheeling Drive? Is that in Pinehurst? Your topic says it's public health advocacy. You've heard what I've commented on to others. Is your comment related to the same, in the same way?
Yeah, it's kind of on the same topic.
Will you say that again, please?
Yeah, it's kind of on the same topic. It's probably what you don't want to hear.
All
So
right.
I don't have to read it if you don't want me to hear it.
I think in the spirit of the policies of the Village Council, as I explained earlier, and I think you were also here for the comments I made introducing that comment tonight, that we'll accept your material in writing, but it would not be appropriate to direct those at the council since it's not something that we have any authority to do. I'd be happy to read those, and if there's something in there that I feel we should bring to the council's attention, I'd be happy to be in touch with you further to that. So do make sure that there's an email address or a phone number contact, if you would, on that material, and you can leave it with the village clerk to my left and your right hand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other persons present who want to address the village council? Mr. Pacifico, would you approach the microphone, please? And state your name.
Frank Pacifico, 155 McKenzie Road East, Pinehurst.
And Mr. Pacifico, you were also here earlier when I made comments with respect to topics to raise under public comments with the village council.
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
feel that your comments are within the business responsibilities of the village of Pinehurst?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
I went to take some yard debris to the village yard debris, and I was denied access to it. And I don't understand why we can't have the yard debris that the village maintains open at this time of the year. Being an old farmer, to me, you prune your trees in the spring of the year, you clean up your garden, you clean up your yard and whatever. The cans that the village supplies don't begin to hold what I was doing this week. And I've seen and heard that some of my neighbors have taken truckloads of stuff there, and they were allowed to go in. But the lady that was there on the staff yesterday would not permit me to go in, even though I had a village container in the back of my truck, and I was at the gate. She would not allow me in to dispose of it, but she said she would send somebody to my house to pick it up, which does not make a bit of sense. So, and she did recommend that I take it to the county dump. Well, the little bit I had, now granted my container was full, and I wanted to empty it so I could finish my yard work for the day, but I couldn't do it. So I'm asking if the village will open this up. And I would say it should be open from February to May, at least. There's a little sign there now that says it's open from October, November. How much yard work, unless you're cleaning up the oak leaves, is there to get rid of? I think there's more cleanup work in the spring of the year than there is in the fall of the year. And I would appreciate it if the village would see that that could get opened so that I could continue to take my small debris over there from time to time.
All right.
Thank you.
There are a number of village council and village staff ears listening tonight to Mr. Pacifico's comments, so I will try to get back to you on what the solution to that may be. But we do have certain times, as you know, that are open. We'll see what we can do in the future. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Would you approach the microphone, please, and either one, and state your name and address and the topic you wish to speak on. Push the button there, Colette. Thank you. Keep trying. Moving to the standing mic.
Colette Klinsky, 25 Queens Court. I just wanted to clarify something tonight. As the person who for 6 years has been fighting for tree preservation, the comment was made tonight that people like us should have showed up for that meeting, and I do want to say that I have been pushed back by Dillon's rule, by McGinnis's law, by P&Z, and I have brought that up every time it has come in front. I have been at those P&Z meetings, and I have brought it up. In April, when I presented the 2 documents about North Carolina tree preservation ordinances that I presented just in April, I asked at that meeting if this was going to be presented from P&Z up to the council, and I was told it wouldn't be till later in March or sometime, when I presented this, when I presented it in February, whenever I presented those.
I recall you're doing that, yes.
Yes, and that it would, and I gave the documents to Beth to give to John, and I was told that it wouldn't come up for some time. So I made other arrangements. It was not around for the March 9th presentation or comments or anything. So I just wanted to clarify that up because I definitely would have been there had I been aware of it. Thank you.
Well, let me apologize to you for my comments. I did not mean them because you've been there supporting this for a long time. So
yes.
It was not directed towards you.
Thank you. Are there any other persons desiring to speak to the village council? I see none. We'll go back to other business. Kevin, you had something you wanted to discuss or bring to our attention?
I wanted you to know, just to talk about the governor change of capacities today.
Yeah.
It will impact village businesses. They're moving to 75% indoor dining, but rather than talk about specific things in the restaurant business, there's things in here that impact our facilities, and the quantity of people that can be in them has increased. And I thought it was important to bring that up. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at them and how it'll impact our facility usage. It looks like indoors you could have 50%, outdoors 100%. If I read this correct, our facilities.
I haven't been able to review it, Kevin. I haven't been able to review it. I know the comments were made around 2 o'clock, 2:30 today.
I think we all read about it
yeah,
at the same time this afternoon, and we haven't had the time to digest it. I'm sure we'll make some adjustments, though.
I just feel like it's going to have a positive impact on Mark and events and stuff like that, and I thought it was worth bringing up.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll all be reading that with a lot of interest very shortly. Kevin, was there anything else you wanted to bring on other business? So we'll look at the new governor's guidelines, on that, the orders. Any other business matters from council members to raise at this time?
No.
I see none. Is there a motion to adjourn the regular meeting?
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Motion by Jane Hogeman. Is there a second?
My second.
Second by Kevin Drum. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. The regular meeting is adjourned. We will begin the work session at 6:36 PM and get into that
6 more
topic and
minutes.
followed by a closed meeting. We've got 6 minutes, all right?
Thanks, John.
Stand up.
Thank you, John. Right, double.
Yeah, let's get started here. But, I'm sorry, did you have a question? No, I was going to talk to you about the 3-minute thing. Oh, okay. Later, yeah. Okay. You all set, Justin?
Shane, you got your hair cut.
Yeah, every once in a while.
A lot. Like this much, didn't you?
Good evening.
Well, it was,
I'm going to call to order the work session for March 23rd, 2021 of the Pinehurst Village Council. Our first and only listed topic, I think there may be some suggestions for future topics made by some of us tonight as well. But our first topic is the discussion of public comment procedures. And I want to thank Kelly Chance, our village clerk, for operating so quickly this morning and putting some additional material together about that. I am going to see if we can get that. Can we get that on the screen, Kelly? Go back here myself to
You guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
I think we're all here now. Jeff's here.
Yeah, I can't turn my camera on because it says that the host won't allow me to.
well,
I've seen enough of you.
Let's see if we can figure that out, Jeff.
That sounds like Jason Thin.
There we go. Oh, now the host has asked me to start my video.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right.
I may make some initial comments here. Obviously, I was surprised when I looked at the date. It was March 24th, 2020, when we had this policy memo in front of us. And really, at that point, it was more a question of should we have comments at the start or the end of meetings and codify some other things. But after working with Mike Newman and Jeff Sanborn in the last week or two, and directly related, obviously, to my comments at the outset of tonight's meeting, it seemed it would be good if we began to confirm policies that we've followed but may not be well known, and to enhance those as the village council sees fit. So Kelly was good enough to not only get the material that we prepared last week out, but to put some notes on last year's version. You've all had a little time to look at this, and I'm sure we'll have some additional suggestions to make. But I do think that it's important for us to adopt a set of procedures, and to that end, let's see what progress we can make on that tonight. Now, Lydia, I think you had one helpful comment earlier in the day, and just to make sure we all saw that, do you want to address that point that you made of some on this on the policies, public comment policies?
Sure, John. In the policy that was dated March 24th, the third bullet, that was taken out.
Yeah.
But that right now we're saying if you want to speak in public comments, you have to sign up. And this removed the opportunity for those who want to speak who had not signed up. And Judy put in an email, that's been our standard policy to allow people to speak who who did not sign up. And I just wondered if we needed to add that to this policy.
Yeah.
That at the conclusion of public comment, at the discretion of the mayor or the presiding officer, other people who wish to speak might be allowed to speak.
Yes, I think that would be wise to do, and it is something we have followed, but I think it's best we get that into the policy itself directly.
I thought it was if we didn't use the 30-minute period there, only though.
Well,
How do we feel
number
about
one
that? I mean, again, a lot of this is picked up from some practices that the Moore County Commissioners have had, but yeah, how do we all feel about, a 30-minute max on this?
Well,
Kevin,
when we
you were-
took out the 30-minute max, then we also took out the third bullet point. So I don't know if we want to keep the 30-minute max. If we do, then maybe we leave the 30-minute bullet point as is. But I just thought it was important to say that people who showed up who didn't sign up still might be allowed to speak.
I agree. I was just trying to say, like, there's no one signed up. Hey, who would like to speak? Or if some people signed up and there was still time left, who would like to speak? So I'm trying to just manage it, agreeing with you.
And I'll raise one other thing is now that we've had, these virtual meetings, people could send an email to public comments, and I actually think we should.
We've lost our signal again. I know Jason's been struggling with that tonight. We were just talking about it. There's a ghost out there somewhere. Go ahead, Judy. Go ahead and repeat.
Well, I mean, we didn't have it in this policy, but we have adopted, a practice as we were meeting virtually that people could send us emails. And so to the public comments email address. And I think we ought to think about perpetuating that because I think people that are watching at home, that's valuable feedback from them too.
I agree 100%, but I'm not sure if I agree if we get 100 emails, they all need to be read.
Well, but I think the clerk could say, we've received 100 emails, 50 of them are about this, 50 are about that. If we get deluged like that.
We're a digital city. Our goal is to be a digital city, so it's very consistent.
But to Judy's point, that's not listed in this policy, and
Right.
I think it should be.
It's an oversight for sure in the current world, and we ought to incorporate
I would join with
public
this.
comments.
I didn't have this camera up, and I joined with audio.
I'm sorry,
I did join with the thing.
That's probably Mike Newman.
I think that's Mike
Sounds like
Newman.
Mike.
See this?
So the host maybe can silence him.
Mike will take care of that, I guess. But, so I think we should incorporate the submission of comments through email into this policy.
Yeah,
Not us reading them, is what I'm saying. I like the practice, so I'm not trying to discourage reading them, but I just want to get you out of a jam.
Kevin, would you say that again? You're not discouraging it, but you wanted to.
I think that we're not guaranteeing all of them are read. They're all part of the record.
Right.
They're all part of the record. I think you got to be careful because the clerk might have to summarize 20 that are the same, and I just trying to, but I want to encourage it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to have once again, I usually try to negotiate the middle. I have my cake and eat it too. But
I think I think included in this point about receiving and using comments by email would be that if to the effect that if there are numerous emails covering the same topic, the village clerk or mayor could summarize those or use those that seem most germane at the time to the topic, something like that. And I'm going to guess that Jeff Sanborn, would this be something that Kelly would just continue to work on from our comments tonight?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with the sentiment. But I do have misgivings about it. I think that what is likely to happen in some cases is we sign our clerk up to read 50 pages of
I don't want that.
Email submitted comments. At some point, I think I'm going to have to be careful how I say this, but we should expect that our community is invested in this. And so what's wrong with asking them to come in to make their comment? and be brief. You know, versus just sitting back at home for a half a day crafting a 4-page email, sending that to the clerk and saying, read this as my public comment.
We should be required to read it. It should be part of the public record.
Yeah.
Well, but we could limit the reading time to be 3 minutes.
Or we could say in 200 words or less,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, there are plenty of ways to put some boundaries around this so that we aren't getting somebody's dissertation. But
Let me ask a question. Is the purpose of public comment for the public to hear it or for us to hear it? And the reason I'm asking that is, what if you get 50 comments? And she said, we've received comments from the following 20 people, 30 people, whatever, and all of these comments will be forwarded to the village council.
That's what I agree with that. Because you should have a higher status by showing up, in my opinion.
To Lydia's question, I think that would meet the intent. I mean, the audience is supposed to be the council. All comments are supposed to be addressed to council. It's not an opportunity to stand up and grandstand in front of the public. At least that's not what it's supposed to be.
But I encourage it. I encourage emails. I like them, but it shouldn't have to be read.
So Jeff, are you saying you like the suggestion of Kelly saying we've received comments from the following people and all of these comments will be forwarded to the village council?
I think that's a very succinct way to do it.
I think it seems like the proper way to do it, or you can end up in a weird place.
Well, also, there's sometimes these things are hard to read out loud. So this just, Kelly's off the spot. We get to hear what people want to say.
Now, Kelly is here, and I think can get on the microphone and respond to some of the things we're suggesting here. So please come around, Kelly. Yeah.
Just the comment, if we are adding that, we do need to say, because those comments do go into our docket file as part of the public. So we can say that that I will forward them on to the city council and they will become a part of the public record.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's a good solution.
Yep. I like that one. Yep.
I like that. That saves us.
So this would be in a new bullet point of receiving comments via email. That's the general topic, and we'd work it. Okay. All right. What other inclusions or exclusions or additions do you all see to the basic structure of what we've got on the board here? Coming back.
30-minute time limit. We just don't have the 30-minute time limit for public comments. That was removed.
On page
I don't see the 3 minutes.
On the page 2, second bullet.
I've
the
got
new
first
one.
page, second bullet.
In the new one.
Each person signed up to speak will have 3 minutes to make his or her remarks. Second bullet on the front page, first page.
There's one called current suggestions. It's on the second bullet on the first page. There's a document called prior discussion.
Yes.
The second bullet on the second page.
Now we're looking at the 2021 draft, not the 2020, correct? So we're all on literally the same page?
Right.
Okay. All right. So this is.
I think the 2021 draft in hindsight is pretty wordy. So I kind of like where you're going with recent, but I thought we incorporate some of that intent, and I think I feel like Kelly can do this and get this solved in a concise manner.
All right. Now, when Judy was finishing some comments, she was preceded by Lydia, and during that time, here in Village Hall, you were all off the screen. So maybe I better make sure we heard whatever Judy was, I think, finishing with, and Lydia was commenting on, or vice versa, just in the last couple of minutes. So we'll have that here.
I mean, the only thing I was talking about was the email comments, and we've been talking about that. So
Right.
I think,
Okay.
and then the 3 minutes is on here.
Yeah.
And the only thing we haven't decided is, do we want to limit the entire public comment period to 30 minutes?
Yeah, because the public hearing timing is not limited.
No.
But the comment is limited, I think that's fair.
Yeah,
And
this
that
only
means-
applies to public comments received at, in our case, the end of meetings. No bearing whatsoever on public hearings.
Yeah, well, it will be much longer, as long as they need
Could
to
be.
be. So I thought that would be good to clarify to the public. But,
Kelly, are you, Kelly's
I think
getting
we're on-
that, good.
I think we're on the right track.
Okay.
And I just think our memo from last year was too long. That's what I like how we're going to get it more concise. Like your one you wrote up, it probably did include some of the things we intended. And I
So,
think
so
we're-
Kevin, I think you're saying that the 2020 draft, which is the one that's in front of us now and marked up, you feel that was more concise and you like that format a little better than the 2021?
I think the 2021 was more concise, but
Oh.
I thought it was important we spent a lot of time on the 2021. I think that, Kelly can handle combining the ideas and getting it more concise. I like how concise the recent one is, but it didn't have, time limits, it didn't have a lot of stuff, and it didn't have the email. And
Yeah.
I think I'm confused by what your good example is. Is it the one of 2020 or the 2021?
Well, my brief reading of the 2021, it was shorter, was it not?
I think the other way
one that's in
around.
Novus agenda for
Yeah.
this meeting is just a page, and it doesn't have the 3 minutes in it.
Right.
But
Oh.
Yes, yes, it does.
There's two
put it
pieces
in-
of paper
There's
you
two
have
for
for 2021. One is the original attachment to this topic in Novus agenda. And then it was put into a policy format. And then later, that would be today, the 2020 draft, which has been marked up. And they differ in length only because of the policy structure, the memorandum structure there is a couple pages for the policy draft.
Yeah, I mean, the 2020 versus the 2021 are different lengths because they're different content. But the first two documents are the same policy language. Just one's put in a Word document, one's put in a policy format. Does that make sense?
I was thinking about the first one I saw and not the one on this agenda, and I apologize.
Yeah.
It was shorter, but I'm just agreeing that we're on the right track, and with all these comments and I thought John did a great job tonight. So incorporating his policies tonight and codifying them in this and the comments tonight,
Hey, Jason, come on. Give me an attaboy.
Hey,
Okay.
on the bullet where you can only discuss matters that are pertinent to the legal authorities of the Village of Pinehurst, is that in state statute?
It is.
Okay.
All right.
Well, it's in, Mike can probably respond better than this. It may not, the state statutes may not spell it out that way, but that's a school government interpretation of the state statutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's important to know in case you get pushback from people who say that they're allowed to get up and talk about anything. If we have authority for this, that's important.
Topics that are germane to the authorities of the village council.
Yeah.
Okay.
My intent on shortening the comment period to 3 minutes isn't what I think they think we want to get out of there early. That's not it. It's abusive to the attendees.
Yes.
Mike's laughing.
It's abusive to the people that want to talk next. I mean, it's hard. Some people give up and leave.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think it's important to state that we need to try to give more people the ability to talk. And I think by the time limit will allow more people to talk and get people
That's a good
to get
point.
their
Let's-
comments more a construct that's easier to understand.
Yeah. I think we've.
Jason just sent me a text. Jason loves technology, and so he used technology to send me a suggestion on using technology.
Okay.
He pointed out that some local governments actually have a light system that's built into their assembly hall. As you can imagine, if you're up there standing up making your public comments, at some point, we had a light system that was the public was conditioned and understood. Maybe it's green and then it turns yellow when you got
10 seconds.
Well,
yeah,
30 seconds.
30 seconds left or something like that, and then it turns red, and they get it. I mean, they understand. They're playing. They're part of the game.
I know. I intend to be, now that we've announced the 3 minutes, and we'll obviously have it confirmed in the official written policy out, I will be more diligent in enforcing that. I did leave a little leeway tonight as people were getting used to that idea. But I think at this point we can ask Kelly, unless she has a further question of us, to take this on, work with Jeff on a new draft of that, get it out, and maybe we can approve it at our next meeting if it's acceptable to everybody.
Maybe send it to Mike. Send it to Mike after she's done.
Yeah, well, Mike saw the earlier draft. And,
Yeah.
and Mike, do you have any comment on the whole concept or where we are with it right now?
No, I think you all are on the right course here. And back to what Kevin was saying, this is really a fairness issue. When you talk about the 3-minute limitation, and you're also talking about an overall, perhaps 30-minute time limit on all speakers, it's not because the council wants to get out of there and doesn't want to hear what you have to say. That's the exact opposite. We want to hear what a lot of citizens have to say. And, it gives a framework to get more views in, as opposed to having folks get up there and read a speech over and over and over for 10 minutes and keep somebody else who can't wait any longer. They're going to go out the back door and we're never going to hear from them. So
yeah,
I think overall it's a balance. That's what we're trying to do, a balance between the speakers so that we allow as many views to be expressed as possible. I think that's good for the council.
We have leeway to extend that time period if we choose. Yeah, and we have, but John, I would say you did a great job tonight, but I think you have to work too hard to manage them. And I like the light system idea because you wouldn't have to work as hard at
Well, to me, it's, I would prefer not to go to that sort of a light system. I actually have a 3-minute timer at home. It's not an egg timer, it's an official little timer. And I was intending to bring it tonight, but I forgot, but I'll bring it in the future. And Jeff Sanborn was using the timer on his phone, and I was looking at my watch pretty well. So we'll be able to enforce that without a light system, I think, at this point. I think we're a little more sophisticated here in Pinehurst than doing that.
To hear everyone, I'm willing to say, but I mean, the construct is 30 minutes and 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's how we should frame this.
Yeah, good. Kelly seems to be enthusiastic about this, or maybe she's going to make another comment. She's walking over to Jason at this time. I think we're all set. Okay. All right. Shall we agree that we've moved this along, I think, well? And Kelly will be able to reflect on that. But Kelly, did you have any clarifications you'd like to ask now? And you can certainly do so through the week as you proceed.
Can't hear.
Can't hear you. Would you come over and...
So the handout that was in the agenda, that handout will be pulled as a summary. That's what will be posted back here on the table, and we will make sure that that's out, and maybe even on our website somewhere under public comments. That way it's out there, the people see it, so they don't have to see the full policy.
Right, and we might want to post that with every agenda online at Nova's agenda.
At the end of the agenda summary.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Good. Perfect.
That's what the county does.
Is that that hasn't been modified yet, but after it's modified to reflect.
Good.
So this isn't going to be posted, the final. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Are there some other subject for future discussion, or even before that, are there some other issues that some of you would like to address tonight? I've listed a few things in my mind just to keep following up on, but Let me go around the bend here again. Lydia, is there anything you wanted to discuss tonight or mention for future review?
John, thanks. I just don't want to lose sight of Frederick Law Olmsted and Donna Ross's birthdays next year.
Yep, I'm going to touch on that in just a minute.
And the Olmsted celebration, and I'll do anything I can if it's work with Mark Wagner or Natalie or whomever. I just don't want to get to December and find out we haven't done anything.
Okay, I don't think that'll happen, but good point. And that was on my list of things to just mention tonight too, but I have another add-on.
Oh, what?
Are you all seated?
Yes.
I only say that because there's a third anniversary next year of importance. Next year, 2022, will be the 100th anniversary of the Women's Exchange. So we have 100, 150, and 200, all
That's
with
great.
very long connections to the history of and the benefit of Pinehurst. So I think we'll try to work out something to deal with each of those, but clearly the Ross and Olmsted have some national implications, and the Women's Exchange more local, but they deserve some attention, I think, too. I think we need to let the village manager get through this budget process for another 30 days or so, but then perhaps at our next meeting, next work session, we could add a discussion of this topic and begin to make some plans on how we want to organize ourselves for next year on those celebrations.
That's great, thanks.
Thank you. Jane, any issues you want to raise tonight? You already mentioned one by email a couple days ago, I think.
Yeah, I was hoping for an update on the technical review committee status for the lodge. But I don't know if this is the right time to ask about that or not, so.
And I'm not sure Darren is still with us, but if
He is, I think.
all right. And I
was
think
planning to be
maybe even the broader discussion is on that very briefly. What's the sort of timing we're looking at as far as future hearings, future work to be done, any issues that have come up? And I know, Jeff, you're trying to include some of this in your weekly report as well. But Darren, if you're here, do you have any comments for us, please?
I think he's there.
He may be in transit.
He might be in the conference room with the other guys.
Let me ask Jason. Jason, do you see Darren tied in from home, if not office?
He's connected.
He's connected, yeah.
He's connected. Oh, okay.
He's just not necessarily there. They're there.
All right. Well, let's.
Hold on, he's calling me.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Darren?
Hey, I can't get in. It says the host disconnected me, so.
Oh, it's Jason's fault.
Jason doesn't like you.
Can you disconnect and come in again?
He's got it.
We heard him. There he is.
I'm Jason on that, Jason. TRC, we just, with respect to the Wicked Lodge, we just went through one set of revisions with them. I think we sent that out last week. So we're waiting for them to respond to our first set of questions regarding the development. There wasn't a lot of significant points of review in there. I think the one that we were asking for the most clarification on was the parking demand, and trip gen calc. So we're waiting on that, but we haven't got a response yet. We think that they're working hard to try and respond because they would like to get to a public hearing within the next, they would like to shoot for April 8th. I'm not sure if we're there yet. I don't think they've got our responses yet, or they haven't responded to us yet. So they're trying to make the April 8th deadline. Maybe they can. That's the ball's really in their court at this point.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the parking? What kind of standard you're using?
Well, we're using the standard that's in our PDO. That's the standard that we're using. They have to clarify they have to mix all the uses. They have to give us a listing of all the uses that are out there on the site, all the proposed uses and existing uses, and they have to show us. We have to know what the required PDO ratio is and how many spaces they have. That's the only thing that we can look at from our standpoint at this time.
And what about the proposed USGA buildings and the amount of parking that they may need in the future? And trying to incorporate the entire site and make sure that there's room for everything.
We don't have that yet because we don't have a site plan yet to review for them. So we can't review something or apply a parking standard for something that we don't have any information on at this point. So they're going to have to come into us with the USGA showing that they've got the requisite amount of parking. I can tell you, just looking at our PDO standards and just an initial look at their parking standards, I think they're going to show that they have enough parking based on our current PDO requirements for just the lodge and this is for the existing facilities of the country club and the hotel, not the USGA. We have not seen anything. We can't apply any parking analysis yet because we haven't seen how many parking spaces that they're providing on site, and we haven't been able to look at an actual building plan, or floor plan to see what type of PDO parking standard we need to apply to that development.
And if that bears out, I think what Darren is telling you all is that if you're interested in more parking, then you need to be thinking in terms of conditions on the rezoning.
Yeah.
He may not have intended to say that, but that was my interpretation of what Darren just said.
That's a nice thing about interpreting things.
Been consistent with the meeting that I had, so I don't understand.
Well, until you actually see our staff analysis or anything, it's really premature at this point because we're still in the process of analyzing it. They're still responding to some of our questions. They have not come back yet with some of the responses with respect to the parking to show us additional analysis. Once they come back and go through the analysis of the parking, you'll understand what we're looking at, what they're proposing, and how the parking is going to work on the site. Right now, we're just talking about it theoretically. Until you actually see a document with the numbers and a table with all the with the PDO requirements, it's just because there's so many varied uses out there. It's hard for me to give you a snapshot of the parking requirement for each of the uses that are out there. But what you have to look at is you have to look at that in the context of the uses and all of the parking spaces that they have over that entire site. I don't think people understand how many parking spaces are actually out there, between the tennis court, around the tennis club, the maintenance facility, over by the railroad tracks. There is a lot of parking on that site, and once you start to see the site plans and how many parking spaces are there, I think it'll get a little bit more clear for y'all.
Yeah, it's premature right now.
I think it is premature.
Until we say it's complete and it's ready to move forward, that's probably the biggest concern that we're spending our time on. We had a meeting with them actually on Monday to talk about the parking and talking about, where is your parking? How are you accounting for it? So they're working diligently on that right now. I just don't have a complete answer because they've not come back at us yet.
I'm sure this will come out, but you just mentioned, Darren, the parking they already have on site, and of course there is a lot, but it may not even be a lot to really handle the current volume. And when the USGA is built and the Wicket Lodge is built, there's a certain amount of parking that's going away, and our concern will be, what's the net added? I mean, how are they going to meet that? At
the end of the day, the only thing our TRC can enforce is what the PDO requires in terms of those ratios. So as Darren said, they've got to nail down the uses and the square footage and other drivers that are associated with those usages and figure out what that means in terms of not only this project, but also the USGA project. It may be we don't have the detail on the USGA facility until this one's already approved and moving forward. But the bottom line is you're going to see that data again for the USGA and it's going to work out. Now, we continue to hear concerns from our community that there's not enough parking over there right now. We got it. But the TRC can only enforce what the PDO requires.
Right.
The good news is we were smart about setting this up for you and trying to coach them to seek a conditional district.
Right. Yeah, and that's fair. That's good and fair all the way around. The other thing I mentioned is, thank you for the timeline, and we'll see how that works out. I think to be, I think to do this correctly with the council's interests, which include the resort's interests, rushing is not necessarily a good thing. If it needs another week or two or a month to get the information together right and to react to it, I think that's the policy we should follow, and I think that's the best for all the stakeholders at the end of the day. And just kind of rushing ahead and doing something to get to the next date. I understand the need to proceed, and we will, but let's do it in a way that we've got everything buttoned up as well as we can as we move along.
And we also have the opportunity, if they can't meet the April 8th deadline for some reason, we could call a special meeting.
That's true.
That's correct.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's correct. Like, we won't move forward until we're comfortable. I mean, we still have to be comfortable that we have the information enough that we'll be able to write a decent staff analysis, and we have everything there for the decision makers at the P&Z level and your level to make decisions based on, the requirements of the PDO. And that's really what we're looking at. So once we feel that they've checked all the boxes that they need to check from our review standpoint, that's when we'll release it. They're thinking that they're getting close. We think that they're pretty close. We're not saying that they're there yet. So until we are satisfied that's met that level of completeness, we're not going to release it. They're hoping to, but that doesn't, just because they're hoping to doesn't mean that we're going to do it. But we are going to accommodate them with a public hearing at some point here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no question. Yeah. All right. Darren, thank you very much. Are there Kevin?
The technical factors would allow them to build a structure without adding parking. That baffles my mind.
Who said that?
That's what you're saying, that maybe they meet the existing requirements already.
No, that's not.
No, yeah, that's right. We are saying that they may meet their existing requirements without adding a parking deck.
Parking, but here's, I just wanted to say one point, is that would cause chaos, and that's not in their best interests.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say, it's not, we want to do, I don't think they want chaos.
No.
Yes, we're dealing with abstract concepts right now.
Right.
Until we get
Let's see how things evolve. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all following our policies. Let's see how it evolves, and we have time. Jane, did you have? I'd like to move along, Kevin, unless there's another.
Nothing about this. I was just.
You have a topic you want to discuss?
I just had something come up today that I thought was pertinent. It's nothing sexy. It's just the back parking area behind the theater building.
Yes.
I'm hearing that there's very little maintenance being done, even though that's a public parking lot. Are we not responsible for maintenance on that?
I don't think so.
We just lease the spaces.
Yeah.
Who is responsible for cleaning it up? Because
Marty?
Okay.
No, it's not Marty.
I don't know.
It's Maples building.
No,
It's
it's the
Maples
owners at
building.
adjacent building.
Yeah.
Okay.
My landscaper ended up cleaning it up, but they said, nobody's cleaning it up, Kevin. Isn't that for you guys? And I didn't know. I didn't know the answer. Now I got the answer.
Yes, the Maples building, Kevin. The owners of the Maples building owns that lot. We lease a handful of those spaces.
I think we're going to have to at least engage them, because it seems like there's been like tree debris all over the place and all kinds of stuff.
Sounds like a
I think it's
input to
first
my.
we're hearing it, Kevin, so
Yeah.
My VOP.
Yeah.
Good input from
My
my
VOP,
VOP.
yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Jane, did you have something you wanted to further discuss? We raised a couple of points here that you had on your list, I think. Judy, do you have some topics you want to discuss tonight or for the future?
I do, and I don't know how we can discuss it, but at the Tri-Cities meeting today, they presented some of the views about the occupancy tax. And one of the things we didn't know at that meeting was when it's going to go to the county commissioners. The agenda came out for.
Oop.
Whereas Aberdeen, we've yet to, have a consensus on that proposal, and we right now probably don't have the materials in front of us to do that. But maybe that's something we should do by email or by another special meeting, so that we get our input in prior to the county meeting next week.
Yeah, Judy, we lost a little bit of your comment because we had a technical problem here, but I think we followed that. It had to do with the occupancy tax, but it came up today at the Tri-Cities meeting, is that right?
Yes.
All right.
and
Jeff, you
it'll
were
be-
there, right? Yeah,
It'll be on the agenda for the county commissioners next Wednesday.
that's right. And that's on
And
my
so
list
we-
here, too.
We should, I think we should figure out what our point of view is and share that with the county commissioners.
Well,
Aberdeen is accepting the proposal that the town managers came up with. Carol Haney indicated Southern Pines would, and, you know, we have yet to come to a consensus. So I think either by email or a special meeting, we ought to meet to address that and have a point of view that's either supportive or not of the proposal.
And that's why I brought up that point earlier.
About Aberdeen?
Yes.
I think I'm getting to the guts of the matter, and I agree with the guts of the matter. I just don't fully embrace and understand the solution that they're proposing. But I see it now, and I tried to give it some clarity. There's people that feel they're being left out, and I thought it was an important point to make, and it's going to influence my discussion on this.
And I might add that, you know, we just didn't come up in our discussion earlier today at the Tri-Cities meeting that in our Moore County Managers meeting, we discussed the topic last week as well, and we got concurrence from what attendance was there, support from some of the smaller communities, those that were in attendance anyway. They like the idea as well.
Now,
Jeff, can you email us what the latest agreement is? I know at one point I was concerned because I wasn't sure everybody was going to be included, and Taylortown is included, but they're not marketed by CVB. So I don't have a clear picture of what the managers are proposing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Jenny from Triangle J gave a presentation this morning that we helped craft. It's only a few slides. I can send that out to all of you.
that'd be good. I think we can, let's see if we can't, so council members, once we get that, let's see if we can get to a consensus or support whatever this proposal is. Jeff's been reminding us about that now for 30 days, and we've talked it through, so that's good, but let's see if we can move forward on that.
I wanted to articulate the issue I have, because I'm hoping that between now and our meeting, we can solve it. And that is consistent money has no accountability. So I can't understand the accountability quotient.
It's the annual report. That's the accountability.
Well, I mean, it's just like,
And it has to be spent in line in categories of expenses that are approved by the CVB. That's the accountability. There's no accountability in the other plan. If the CVB continues down their current path, currently they have no accountability to anybody.
There's got to be a clawback.
Except their own businesses.
There's got to be a clawback provision if somebody doesn't spend it, the increased. There's got to be at a minimum.
And that can certainly be negotiated. I don't think we're at that point yet. I mean, we have to get to the point of having a framework, you know, that everybody kind of agrees with. So,
right.
Yeah.
And I know that there's two formulas, one that doesn't include SDRs. It's in our best interest for them to be included. They have the numbers. We don't have the numbers, but they do.